Welcome to the OtherWorldsGG Community Cast. This is episode number 35. I am Table for Two, and I am joined today by Mellified and Alien Pickle. What's up, fellas?
Hello. Doing great?
That's good. What about you, Jim?
We're going to add mod support to the podcast, so you can download additional content and bolt on as you see fit.
Workshop support for the podcast?
Yes.
No.
And then, like Skyrim, we can release each episode like 10 times.
Oh, yeah. You can get
down on how much we need to do.
You can get the Orion Slave Girl mod for Alien Pickle.
Yeah, that's right. Because green, right? Pickle chicks.
See what I did there? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we thought today, as our topic show would go, we wanted to talk about mods and gaming. You know, definitely talk about in some cases, controversies around them, but I think more importantly, the importances of them, and some of the favorite ones that we've had fond times playing over the years. I know that certainly without mods, I think we wouldn't be in the place that we are today with a lot of games. I mean, I think in general, mods are kind of what really built the Valve empire, if you will. Well, I mean, really, like when you think about it, when Gabe Newell and those guys branched off to form Valve, right, and they made Half-Life as their first game, what spun off from that was a series of mods that then at some point became official games from Valve. And it kind of just grew from there. Of course,
like Team Fortress and
there was Blue Strip, Counter-Strike, Day of Defeat. All kinds of them. Now, of course, if you look at the history of like game engines, the engine that, of course, they use, I believe, was a modified version of the Quake engine, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Which was also known for its time as being, a highly used engine for mods too, right? Because Quake was heavily modded. Well, especially Quake 3, if I'm not mistaken, there as well. But like the Quake engine was used in other games later on, and like Star Trek Voyager Elite Force, right? And Elite Force 2. And those games, then and of themselves, received heavy amounts of mods. That was something about the Elite Force games that I remember was the mod scene for that was really cool because people were making essentially virtual tours of starships that you could just like download these maps. And you could just like go and explore like the Enterprise or Voyager or whatever it was. They would build out full-fledged ships that you could go on a virtual tour of. That was pretty cool. And then years later, there was a full release pack that was done that you can get for free. It's like an official release for the Elite Force stuff that turns it into kind of like an RPG maker using like the Star Trek assets and world through the Quake engine that they had there. I forget what the full name of that is, but it's like XRPG or something like that.
Yeah.
Which that's pretty slick. That's a pretty slick thing that was made available. So, I don't know. What are your takes on mods?
I'm fascinated. One thing that's a big deal. Mods are certainly not only available on PC, but almost all mods are only on PC. And that really is the distinguishing, or one of the distinguishing features, I think, of the PC as a platform is having access to things that in many cases take the game, far, far beyond where it started and really adds a ton of value to games that otherwise you might not, have access to.
Community mod support has been a selling condition. It's like it's not just like a nice to have, but it's actually like people will buy your game if they know that there's going to be a strong mod community, right?
Well, like Counter-Strike helped to sell Half-Life, right? You know, because someone made the Counter-Strike mod, and that sold Half-Life because people wanted to get in on that action, right? And so it increased your replayability of a said thing, because it's like, not only do I get this base thing, but then there's this whole community of people making stuff for it that I can play with it.
Yeah, and like
that's
stuff,
cool.
Well, how about just Gary's mod in general? That's just a mod platform.
Yeah.
You know, he charges for it, but you're basically leveraging the Half-Life engine, but as a product that is nothing but a mod platform.
Right. So the Source engine in and of itself is such a great tool too, that, you know, Valve has continued to work on, that people have then been able to make mods for and such.
Yeah. I feel like we all own Gary's mod, right? Like,
Yeah.
I've not delved into it so much. You know, like I played a little prop hunt and whatever the meme of the moment was, but I feel like people are just making whole ass games in there, and maybe that would be a thing that we could explore and check out, like what's actually going on.
Because Prop Hunt's a game of itself. They also have Trouble in Terrorist Town, which is a game that's in there. Which is, you know, there was a wave of YouTubers, like, you know, 10 years ago, that were doing like nothing but exclusively playing stuff like Prop Hunt and Trouble in Terrorist Town, stuff like that, and just making, you know, tons of videos of that. It's interesting, like, you know, people get sick of the repetitiveness, but there was something about watching these group of YouTubers play it that just kind of became entertaining, at least during that time frame. but yeah, I think that whole mindset has then spawned off certain things like Core for Epic, right, where they have that, and then there's also that thing that was on PlayStation. God, I forget what the name of that sucker was.
Well, there's Dreams.
Right, Dreams. That's what it is. Yeah. You know, these different things that have essentially made it to where, you know, not only are there mods out there now, but it's turned into like a game for making games, or, you know, like that kind of thing, which has become pretty cool.
I would give up mods entirely if we could just get rid of Roblox.
Yeah.
Well, let's not talk too crazy, right? Like, I think the thing that's so interesting to me is just how much can be done with a game that has good mod support.
Yeah.
It's you know, sometimes just astonishing what people do with these mods, you know, the total conversions and things like that, where it's just a completely different game.
Like, well, the guy for Rebel Galaxy Outlaw was supposed to be releasing mod tools for his game, which would have been pretty interesting to see, because that game is, you know, straight up old school space sim, right? You know, from a like an X-wing perspective, or like, you know, Freelancer or something like that. So that would have been.
I don't know though. The Rebel Galaxy Outlaw thing is kind of dead at this point, I think, because they're just not really working on it, and they've kind of split.
Well, and the
like
lead
Travis
developer
got out of games.
Yeah, I was about to say the lead developer got out of it because of the harassment he received over his Epic exclusive deal that he did for, you know, 6 months to a year of being exclusive on Epic before going elsewhere, and the toxicity from that unfortunately drove him to like not want to develop anymore, which is quite sad, really. Not for him, but the fact that people, you know, felt compelled to treat him like that, which is what I'm getting at. But anyway,
yeah, Travis got out and like just went back to doing audiobooks as a full-time gig. He just enjoys it more.
Right.
And yeah, but then the other guy, Eric, I guess is like just the community basically destroying their own creators, right? It's just like, let's just scream at this guy until he just never makes anything again.
Yeah.
It's like, that's how you get what you want, right?
Yeah, really.
Well, and I feel like, I even feel like, you know, in some ways too, that's the same attitude that these big IP companies take towards individual modders and creators as well, where you get somebody who's excited about something, or maybe they're like a student in school and they're making something as a project for school, and then you get like EA or Disney or somebody, or Paramount, or I guess Viacom coming after like Star Wars and Star Trek, people that are making really cool stuff. It isn't like to make money. It's a pure like independent project, but it's like, cease and desist all your actions. And it's kind of like, well, that's no fun, because that just shuts down people's imaginations and their love of a thing. I get that their IP laws say like, you got to protect it or else, but like I just feel like there used to be more room for that kind of stuff, because
you can selectively choose to enforce shit.
Well, the funny thing about it though is like, you look at something like the Star Trek Armada 3 mod, which, by the way, for Sins of a Solar Empire, if you don't have the Star Trek Armada 3 mod, do yourself a favor.
Yeah, it's a really good time.
It is really good, but those guys are using. I don't think they got as much heat for it as like you would imagine, because they kept putting out updates for it. Like they had like an expansion for their mod, I think, at one point.
Wow.
They added in more content after the full release. So like they did a full release and then they did like an update release for it with more content.
Yeah, and so I feel like the mod thing is best served as like, don't run your mouth about your mod until it's ready to release and drop that shit.
Well,
it's like, too late, guys. It's already in the wild.
But that's just it though. I feel like, at what point is it a mod or is it a quote unquote creation? Because like an independent work, right? Because when you look at something like Sins of a Solar Empire with the Star Trek Armada 3 mod, they've got audio, they've got models, they've got all this other stuff, images. That's all in there. Icons, like I've got, if I'm playing Klingons, all my little ships have like the Klingon icon over them when I zoom out. So it's like all of that stuff is in there. And yet, when you look at somebody who builds something, I guess, from scratch in Unreal Engine 4, what if they were just to go say, oh, well, this is a mod of any Unreal Engine 4 game? You know what I mean? Like, at what point, especially if it's a not-for-profit project, if it's something out there, it's just like, hey, check out this thing I'm building for fun in here just because I'm trying to work on the mechanics, and people can come in and play it, but it's not for profit, it's not for like gain,
right? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, because that's what happened with Halo, where the Halo 3 online game that was supposed to be just for the Russian market got hacked essentially, and had an English translation applied to it, and then people in the US took it and ran with it, and they had a mod for it that allowed for like server browsing and all this other stuff to be able to play online, and they kept tweaking and updating it, and eventually 343 and Microsoft came along and said, hey, stop doing that. I
don't understand why it even existed in Russia and it was okay.
Well, it existed because they had an exclusive deal with that market. So it was supposed to be just for the Russian market that they were going to release this thing. But anyway, that's not the point. But the point I was trying to make though is that 343 and Microsoft came along and said, "Hey, stop working on your mod and stop distributing this hacked file of our game." No. What they weren't allowed to continue to update their mod, but where their mod was, they could continue to distribute the mod. They just couldn't keep distributing the hacked file game, which was an interesting thing. So like the developers kind of like, closed the door and said, well, we're done dealing with this. Go away, everybody.
Right.
And that's the interesting thing about some of these communities that make these mods to make some of these games work, where they're like, well, we got to cease and desist. Well, the letter clearly states that they don't want to discourage you from continuing to play what you've already done. Just stop working on it, and making any new improvements to it.
Right. Well, okay, so back to the guys that did the Battlefield shit, right? Because didn't you at one point join a Discord server that had one of the guys that was involved in that?
I've talked about this before in the past, I think at some point, but when you start getting individual communities together and you get these egos involved where you think someone's better than someone else, it just gets really ridiculous. So there was so that whole story, come to find out, ended up being BS. So 95% BS. So basically what had happened was there was a group of there was this guy that essentially revived Battlefield 2 and Battlefield 2142 and a new like launcher. And what he was doing was he was using logos and like EA branding and all this other stuff. It was a group of them in their launcher, and they were also providing the game for people. So it was like, here's the Battlefield 2 game, here's the 2142 game, and here's how you guys can play it, and we're setting up servers and we're having a good time. Well, EA comes along and says, hey, stop that. But
right, they can't provide the game, even though that's not specifically what they were bitching about. But that's
right. They weren't, and they weren't bitching about that. What they were bitching about was stop using our branding and stop distributing the game. But other than that, have fun playing it. If like you can make the game work and play it, and like provide the mod files for other people to make it work and play it, we're okay with that. Just stop distributing our stuff and stop using our branding like you're an official thing. And then it turned into this whole big drama fest of, oh, well, we got a cease and desist, we're shutting this thing down, and then everything broke and stopped working. Well, come to find out, the reason why that happened is because those guys had stolen the project from this other dude and turned it around into something that he didn't want it to be in the first place. And so when they shut it down, the original dude was able to spin his stuff back up again and do it the right way. And so it was this huge drama thing in the Battlefield 2 and 2142 community. But like Project Reality is a huge mod for Battlefield 2. Like there's a huge community for that.
Yeah, it's essentially the basis for Squad is Project Reality. It's just, here's Project Reality and Unreal Engine.
Right, and so essentially that's what happened is people that were working on Project Reality went and started making Squad. And so now we have the game Squad. So it's like, hey, check that out. That's pretty cool. But you know, yeah, it's really unfortunate when you get people's egos in the way of things, and then you know, it really can damage things, and I find it rather unfortunate. This is how we almost lost Star Wars Galaxies, for that matter, as well. You know, there's a group of people. There's several different camps there, but there's two major ones. So you've got like the vanilla core group of people who have been working on that thing since like, you know, 2008, right? And then you've got, so just for the vanilla version of the game when it like first came out. And then you have the other group of people who are trying to revive the game like it was on the final day. So like when the game closed. And they both have strong communities, and there's a lot of cross like contamination where people are in kind of both camps, and you know, they're supportive of both projects, me being one of them. But there was the largest one that's out there for the latter half, which is Star Wars Galaxy's Legends, right? Back in like 2017 or 2018, they almost completely imploded, and the server like files were almost completely like wiped and lost because you had one person who got super duper butthurt about something and almost killed the whole project.
Yeah, which is also like City of Heroes went through that.
Right. And then the reason why we're talking about these things, and you're like, well, where's the mod in this? Well, I mean, these are mods to make these things work, right? Like they essentially are, even though it's an emulation thing, it's a modification of like the files in order to play these things. But I mean, yeah, it's just these weird niche communities like this are kind of strange. Speaking of mods, there's another, in like Battlefield, there's another group of people who have gotten Enemy Territory Quake Wars going, and they have a whole community of folks who are like playing that on a regular basis now, which is pretty slick.
I'm shocked there's like 10 people other than you and me that remember that game.
Yeah, no kidding, right? So, I mean, heck, if I go look at their Discord right now as we're recording this, there's a group of 5 people in their general voice chat right now.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and this is
why
like
are we
where
playing Quake Wars?
Well, that's the thing. So, you know, I think America's Army 2.5 is another thing that's like that. So a lot of these things, a lot of these mods, a lot of these types of games, I'm building, we're working on our website right now. We have a base version of it, and it's subject to change. So don't get too excited. But if you go to OtherWorldsGG right now, we have a very basic, simple website. And what I want to do is build out like a knowledge base / Wikipedia there with all this kind of information in there on how to find these niche communities, these niche mods, these just things that are like you've maybe always wondered, but you're not sure like where to find them. I dig up and find this stuff on a regular basis. It's crazy the kinds of things that you can find out there when you get super duper dedicated. And
So
yeah,
it's like,
so
let us Google that for you.
kind of, yeah, in a lot of ways. Yeah, let me Google that for you, because I mean, there's communities that are doing mods for like Halo stuff. Like there's Project Cartographer, which is a Halo 2 thing, which makes Halo 2 run super duper awesome. Like OG Halo 2 for the PC, that was a Vista like exclusive launch. That was really a shitty port of Halo 2. They've modded it and improved it, and now it's like Halo 2 is an awesome game, right? Like they've really made it. I mean, of course, you can get the Master Chief Collection now, but if you want that nostalgia, like OG original, like Halo 2 on the PC, but better,
If you want the struggle,
they're doing it. They're doing it. Like they've made it's a very playable. It's very good, and I like it. So I mean, like there's that as an example, and they've got all of their modification stuff for that. Then there's a couple of different like fan-made Halo games that they have like the full support of Microsoft and 343 as they're making them. That's pretty interesting. There's a whole community of people dedicated to Mech Warrior or mech style games, BattleTech stuff. You know, they've made these mod files essentially to make these games work on modern machines. Hell, the other day I found a Star Siege community. Like,
holy crap!
How random, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and this doesn't even get into like modifications of like console stuff. So, like the Wii U emulator, Cemu, you can play Breath of the Wild. Of course, we're not like endorsing anything illegal. So if you have an official copy and you want to emulate it, go for it. I support that. But people have modded Breath of the Wild on the emulator on the PC so that, well, basic stuff, right? So like improving, you know, graphics, improving field of view and details and stuff like that. But then they inject like other characters, so like you can play as you can play as Big and Smoke from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Like you can play you know, there's a motorcycle in the game that you can replace it as like Sonic the Hedgehog. Like there's all kinds of things where people are modding emulated console games on PC too, which is honestly awesome. I think that is brilliant, you know?
It kind of pisses me off, actually, the People Awares sites that are out there that are distributing like, here's this game and the emulator bundled together, and it's like, hey, you're not doing any favors here.
Yeah, well, there's some you got to watch out for that. Then I'll warn you folks out there, if you're looking for this stuff, just be very careful, because it's
really easy to slip some spyware shit into an emulator that's already doing.
Yeah. So. But like, there's some out there. There's one in particular where they are bundling the game and the emulator for each game. So like, if you want Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, they're like giving you both the emulator twice and the game files for each. And so it's just like, it adds up really quickly. And I'm just like, this seems very counterintuitive. Yeah, the rooster over there agrees with me. It's like, yeah, man. But yeah, the fact that people are modding like console games on emulators for the PC is pretty wild to me, and I think that's pretty awesome. But yeah,
well, I was surprised, like Front Mission 5, right, for the PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
They took it and injected a fan translation, because it never came out in English, but they put English subs in it and made it playable for me. And it's like, okay, cool, thanks. You know,
yeah, they used to
that kind of stuff. I didn't realize you could mod console games.
Yeah, and they used to do. I mean, well, this goes back even further than that, though, because they used to do that for Final Fantasy games, right? Because in the West, until recently, you know, over the past couple of decades, we didn't get the official like releases of Final Fantasy games, right? Like we got one, and then we got 3, which was actually like 6 or something like that. And like, our versions of Final Fantasy games were not the same order of Final Fantasy games that Japan got, but you could get the ROMs and then English translations of them over here. So, and those were, Super Nintendo games. And like, I remember getting those as far back as like the early 2000s, getting these, translated versions of Final Fantasy games. Also, just finding out the fact that we weren't getting all the Final Fantasy games kind of blew my mind. So,
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's interesting to me is the idea that this is such a selling point on PC, and yet we have Steam Workshop and we have Nexus mods, and that's pretty much it.
Mod
these
DB.
days.
Yeah.
Mod DB, that's true. But like Epic came out with the store. They've been pushing really hard. They've been giving away, millions and millions of dollars worth of free games to people to get them to use the store. And yet we still don't have any sort of mod support or achievements.
Yeah, the fact that they have no workshop is really a bitch.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's a disincentive for using their store for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how many people buy stuff there and then rebuy it when it comes on Steam a year later. Maybe that's the secret.
I suspect more than a few, frankly.
You need to get that Rooster microphone and get him on the show. I think he has a lot to say about this topic.
Yes, he's for some reason, like, he's been quiet for the last few hours, and yet then as soon as we start recording, maybe because he hears my voice, I don't know, but he's been noisy. So
feed me, human. Yeah,
probably. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I think, and then there's we were touching on this a little bit before we started recording. Nexus mods, has stirred up quite a bit of controversy. They changed their policy such that now you cannot delete mods once you release them off of the site. And the intent there is to preserve, mod packs so that they don't suddenly stop working. But obviously that, upset some people. I think it's fair to say.
I think a lot of it was people would get butthurt. It's like I put my mod out and then this person incorporated my mod into their mod, but they're distributing my mod with their mod because it's dependent on it. So I'm going to just take my mod down to break their ability to develop on it anymore. And it's like, really? It's you made a free thing, you're giving it away. If he's giving you credit for your part of it, then why are you butthurt?
It does get into like weird territory because it's kind of like GitHub, right? Like where, you can branch off, you can fork someone else's development into your own, and then like you can take what they've put out there. But there's kind of like a thing, like if you've put it out there publicly, well,
maybe it needs to be like a GitHub where it is like, here's the source of my mod, bang, just put it up there, right? And it's just like, at that point it's free for all. If you put it up, it's up. It's not like you're going to make money off of this thing anyway, so people are just doing it for like,
the other thing,
right?
The other thing about GitHub too is that you got public and private repositories, right? So I mean, like, you don't have to like necessarily make your mod public to just everybody too. Like you can, you know what I mean? Like there's also that as a factor with GitHub that I feel like maybe Nexus could do some kind of implementation of. Like how cool would it be? And of course maybe the people could just like release it on Patreon, but like if there was some kind of like Patreon tie-in where it's just like if you sub to my channel, then like you get the mod, and that could be a little bit different too for people who are like professional modders, I guess, if you want to call it that. It is a controversy, though. I do feel like Nexus could have done something better,
Well, and the thing is, I'm not sure what they do, right? Like, if you sort of accept that this is a problem, how do you solve it? I don't know that I have any good answers, that's for sure.
Or you just have a flag that people you can declare like, okay, I want to preserve my ability to be butthurt and yank my mod down, so I won't participate in this. But that puts you in a different promotion bucket than people that just say, yeah, here it is, right? Because then it's like, hey, you know what? We're going to actively promote people only if you check the box that says you're going to comply with the whatever. But if you want to be like restrictive about whatever, then you get a lesser treatment, but you can still be here.
Yeah, it's
I
an
don't know.
interesting idea. So
Or
I
that
think,
at least lets people know, like, this mod may disappear at any time. Don't base your
Right.
shit off of it.
right, yeah, like long-term support versus,
Yeah.
for Linux distributions. Yeah, I think,
Interesting. That's an interesting concept.
yeah, well, I mean, the amount of work that goes into updating mods when a game updates it to a new version and things like that is actually very, very significant in many cases. And you see mods that die when the game gets updated because the authors disappeared and can't be bothered to go back in and figure it out. So I think there's certainly some basis for improving that, where having the source code so somebody else could compile it is it might be an idea. I don't know, it's a fascinating space, and one of the things that I think Steam Workshop did is provide a very easy and auto updating mechanism for installing these mods, which really opened things up quite a bit, because you're not going to some sketchy website or having to, click through 50 different ads to get to the mod itself, right? Like, you just go in, you browse the workshop, you click on it, say subscribe, and it shows up on your system.
Yeah, I'd love to see something pretty cool. I'd also like to see more support for mods outside of the PC realm if it's possible. I know that they've got some stuff for some games. I think, what was it, on the Xbox?
Yeah, they did do. Microsoft did a deal with Bethesda back in the Skyrim, original Skyrim days, where Bethesda curated a mod store or a mod, solution, and those mods were select mods from that were allowed to run on the Xbox version. I never tried it myself, but certainly the idea was sound of, hey, this is a big feature, and we'd like console players to be able to, experience some of the amazing content. But it never really seemed to take off, and then Bethesda decided that, hey, we're going to monetize mods. They tried that at one point, where they started selling. They basically had paid mods, and they took 70% and the authors got 30%, which was very controversial. And they didn't curate that at all, or provide any mechanism for people to protect their content. So you had, bad actors going and downloading a mod and uploading it to the Bethesda store, claiming it as their own and getting paid for it. And I think the whole system only lasted like a week before they took it down and reverted it. But that was an interesting idea, because I would love to be able to pay, mod authors. I like that feature of Nexus mods where you can throw them some money.
Yeah, I like the tip jar aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, no,
so
very
I do
much
think
so.
there's
Yeah.
a place for that.
Yeah, and I definitely thought that should have been the first indication, before they did the horse armor fiasco, was, let's try and provide a tip jar and see how that goes. Because the funny thing is when you give people an option to say, hey, I like your stuff, let me support it. I mean, they've done trial and errors on this too before with like music albums. People have talked about different music albums that I've got to release. Like, here, pay what you think this is worth. You know, some obviously you're going to get people who are going to try and grab it for free, but you've got those out there that are going to be like, hey, I think this is all a worthwhile endeavor. I'm going to throw, $20 at this thing because I totally get it.
Yeah, and there's
So-
what store is it? It's like an indie thing for PC games, and they have that
Itch?
too. Yeah, I think it is maybe Itch, where it's like some games are like here's flat price, and some games are like pay what you want, right?
Yep.
And you can
Yeah, that's
just
definitely
just be like, yeah, just take me to the download. I don't know, but then you have the ability to come back and throw them money. You know, it's like, hey, I played this and it's pretty all right, so I'm gonna give you some money.
Yeah.
I honestly I like the old school, the way that Doom was distributed back in the day. It was like, hey, we'll give you the first like couple levels for free, and then if you want to play the rest of the game, right? Like if this jives with you, then pay for the rest of it. I wish that more games came out like that.
I
I think
mean,
the
Yeah,
reason they
yeah.
don't is DRM
Well-
problems, right?
well, I don't know.
If I
I
give
just
you
don't
the
know.
executable.
I just don't know if that's an option though on some of these platforms, because you look at stuff like with Steam. Can Steam make that as an option where it's just like, here's the game, because I know they do demos.
Well, the
and
devs can put the demo out, yeah.
Well, the demo thing was interesting, right? Because I feel like the demo thing went away at one point, and then like they brought it back and kind of made it like a bigger button. But I think what would be beneficial for Valve/Steam is to make the demo thing a bit more of a talking point. Because I think could go ahead.
Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, I just think that could be more of an incentive for folks, because most of the time when I'm looking around on Steam, I'm not thinking like demos used to be such a huge thing back in the day, but they kind of like went the way of the dodo when like the magazine died, right? And so I've not thought to look for a demo, but like if there were demos of games out there, it's kind of like on Game Pass, right? I know that I can download any of these games for free, so I just go browsing. So, like, what if there was, like, a whole demo page according to the search results of things that I'm looking for, of games that might interest me? I could easily see myself just downloading demos and trying things out on a very regular basis.
Yeah, I think the Xbox 360 had a system where Microsoft said you had to produce a demo for your games, and it was really, really nice.
Yeah, because then it's like I see a game in the store and I can hit the demo button, right, for everything. And yes, I agree, that was pretty good.
I wonder, like, we know Steam has the ability to give you a time-limited version of a game because they do it when they do free weekends, right? Where you get a game to try multiplayer over the weekend or whatever. So there's certainly indications that they could do it. I think what a lot of people seem to do is treat the 2-hour return policy as a demo.
Right.
They
download that's
and
maybe
try
the
it.
key right there. Is
I
let me pull down any game and get a couple hours, and if I want to continue past that, then I got to pay.
Ooh, that's dangerous, because the controversy came up recently with a game that was made that was actually too short. Remember that? And the guy was getting screwed because people were playing it and beating it within those 2 hours and then refunding it.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't apply for those kind of games then, but I'm saying like people that wanted to participate in that could use that as their demo thing. Is just like, hey, you know what? You can have a demo. It automatically revokes this game after 2 hours, but you get the full game for 2 hours, and then you decide if you're going to pay.
Well, the problem that I have with that though is games are so large these days that you're going to be like, downloading a full game just so you can play it for like maybe 15 minutes to find out whether you like it or not.
Yeah, but if that saves you $50, then that was your option. See, the reason that it sucks to use the refund thing as if it was the demo is because they don't refund the Steam cut of 30%. So if you buy a $10 game it costs the dev $3 when you refund it.
Yep. Well, and to me, that's the incentive for doing demos right there. But
Yes.
it doesn't seem to be a thing.
Yeah,
for
so I'm
whatever
just
reason.
saying, like, if you let them have the 2 hours before you collect money,
Yeah.
then you don't have a refund tax for everybody
Yep.
that refunds your shit.
That would be interesting. I do, going back to mods a little bit. I think the thing that's so interesting to me is having community mods that go in and fix games that are broken. The original Vampire the Masquerade game, the first-person shooter that came out, that was horribly broken when it launched, and the developer, went out of business, and the publisher pretends the game doesn't exist. There's, one of the developers ultimately worked on the community patch to fix the game and contributed to it. And now there's a mega patch that basically, you shouldn't play the game without, which I find fascinating, right? That people saw something in that, they saw a diamond in that pile of shit, and basically shoveled it out and polished it off, and then actually made something worthwhile out of what was otherwise a pretty terrible game.
Famously, Knights of the Old Republic 2.
Mm-hmm.
Huge community patch that really
all that cut content and everything.
Yeah, there was a huge thing with that. And then but then there's also times where modders kind of fix what developers did in post, right? And I'm specifically thinking of GTA 4, where the licensing ran out on this music, and so Rockstar patched out a whole bunch of music. And then the modders came back in and said, "Well, we got this." they modded it all back in. Which I think is fantastic, because some of that music was actually integral to the game itself. Like, it was kind of like, thematic and part of the scene, or, just kind of, and then when all of a sudden that's gone, it just kind of like you just destroyed the experience for that person. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where, the other example I was thinking of these, mega patches is actually Cyberpunk 2077. There's a complete, overhaul mod that came out recently that rebalances everything in the game, with the emphasis being, let's make everything productive and playable and fun. And I just think that's so cool that we have that option with PC games, where, there's no way, even if you have a mod store on in the game, like, you're never going to necessarily get a total overhaul mod like that, I don't think, in a in-game system, just because it would be so profound to the game. It would change what it really is. Versus, but a lot of the Skyrim stuff's like, oh, I'm going to add better book covers, or I'm going to add, another quest.
Better book covers.
That's actually one of the mods.
No, I know, but still, it's so funny.
Yeah, but that's the kind of stuff that I don't know, I find really interesting, is how the community will come together, or in some cases one person, it's a passion project for them, and do these total conversions or total upgrades. I guess
I think the coins are too low poly, so I'm gonna like up the poly count on the quarters that are laying on the desk. It's true mod.
Yep. And so, I does GOG have mod support, or are they just dependent on Nexus and other sites?
They're dependent on Nexus and other sites. So I mean, essentially they're not blocking it. Like, they just don't have their own in-house thing. They do have the forums, though, are actually pretty slick, because a lot of people on the forums will, like, so for the Knights of the Old Republic 2, for example, they actually have links on the forums for people to go get those mods. So, like,
nice.
So, I mean, the forums on GOG kind of make up for it, because usually people will link in there all the different, like, ways to go and mod these games. So like yes and no, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, all of it's interesting to me because it is such a differentiator between the consoles and the PC in particular. And like, I know people who love Elder Scrolls Online, but playing it on console as sort of the vanilla experience versus having all the mods on PC where you can, you know, have a map overlay for all of your collecting like berries and plants and mining and all that stuff. Uh, that makes the game so much better, so much easier to play that, you know, people won't play the Elder Scrolls on the console because it's just such a more difficult experience and, you know, lacks that quality of life stuff. So um, you know, it can really change the experience. It's pretty crazy.
gnarly indeed. Yeah, I'd actually like to see somebody take some of these like emulated mods for console games and like try and export them in a way to play them on official consoles. I think that'd be kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. Well,
You know.
one of the ones that you do get pretty regularly are, you know, Japanese exclusive titles will get an English translation patch, which is, you know, effectively a mod for like ROM dumps and things. But that's about as close as we seem to get most times.
Well, what I'm saying is like someone takes like Link and replaces them with SpongeBob, and then like rips that to a DVD and throws it into an actual like Wii U or something, and like just like wait a second, where did you get the SpongeBob skin? So it's like
Yeah, that's crazy to think about.
yeah, I mean I think it would be kind of fun though, but yeah. The other big one though too is like we talked about the workshop, and I think the workshop is an interesting piece, and in particular when it comes to like early access games. I do have a bit of a complaint here, and that is like with something like Space Engineers, right? So Space Engineers was in development for such a long time and was considered in like early access slash beta on Steam for a very long time. And then throughout this whole thing, though, it had workshop support. So the problem that I have, though, here is anytime they did some major update, there was usually a pretty decent chance that whatever was going on was going to break your mods or break your server or something like that. And you'd have to kind of go in and do damage control. And that always used to frustrate the crap out of me. Like Jim will tell you, like I tried running a public Space Engineer server for a while. That became a nightmare because I'd get like pinged and like contacted at like 2 o'clock in the morning because someone in like Europe wanted me to like update a mod because it wasn't working anymore or something like that.
Yeah.
But the thing is though, is like when that happens, then the mod people have to go in and like update their mod in order for it to work with the newer version in some cases, depending on what the mod is.
Like if you're in that environment, the best thing that you can do, the only sane thing that you can do is turn off auto updates on your client, and then it's like you're frozen right at the level until the server upgrades, but then you're stuck playing on that one server then.
Right.
So yeah.
Yep.
Well,
I'll tell you one game that's stealth
maps.
modded all to hell is Empyrean. Like, dude, the mods in Empyrean are nuts, but they're not like workshop things. Like they have the designs for the ships and stuff on the workshop, but and maybe I don't know, maybe the standalone server stuff is up there. I just haven't dug. But that one server I've been playing on is just modded to hell and back. It's just really has changed the game. Like the numbers for everything is different.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, and the nice thing about that though too is like they have their server stuff very locked in. Like the people that are running that custom mod or that custom server or whatever, there's more than like a few people working on that. You know what I mean? Like they've got a group of people like kind of keeping that dedicated. So that's kind of one thing. But like usually with these like Space Engineer servers, it's like one person trying to like run a thing for like a community, and it became for a while it became kind of a nightmare. It's not so much an issue anymore, but I'm just speaking in terms of like that's an example for current anything that's out there. So, but yeah, mods are great. I certainly do love them. Mellified, you got a couple of mods in your mind that are some of your favorites that you like?
Let's see. I would um I would not play Minecraft Java without
Oh
gosh, the Feed the Beast mod is really great. There's a ton of them on Minecraft for sure that really just can, transform the game radically, make it more fun, more interesting. So that's one that comes to mind. The X-Wing super update that we talked about, gosh, a couple months ago now, is really, really impressive. I mean, I've barely scratched the surface of it, but
Oh, you talking about the X-Wing
TIE fighter
Alliance?
yes, yes.
Yeah, the X-Wing, the mod community for X-Wing Alliance has been around for a long time, and they have not stopped modding that game. And a perfect example is recently they came out with a total conversion that brought in TIE Fighter into X-Wing Alliance engine and just had all the nice upgrades and updates and flair. It's pretty solid.
Yeah, he took an already balls hard game and made it harder though.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you've played it the most, so like elaborate on that a little bit.
Well, I mean, like X-Wing Alliance, they changed the way that a lot of the ships work.
Right.
It's like in the old game, the ships wouldn't try to shoot down incoming torpedoes.
Oh,
Sure
okay. Yeah. That's
stuff like
true.
that.
Yeah.
And so in order to compensate for some of the stuff, then he added like more and better ships to the sides and stuff. So it's like, mission 3 of the game is usually a cakewalk. Not anymore. Like even the one where it's just like, oh, just scan the freighters as they go by, and oh, there's rebels on that one, disable the shields, and okay, mission over, right? Oh, it isn't that anymore. Now you have to like deal with the whole rebel fleet that jumps in and tries to save those guys.
Well,
yeah, it's a different animal. You have the option to go and play the old campaign as it originally was, but it's a little bit kind of off still. So some things may not be perfect because the revision campaign is the one that he put all the time into.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to go in and change some of the programming on a thing when you don't have the source material.
Exactly. I want Westman to play it and tell me what he thinks.
This is true.
He might be like, this is better than what we did for sure.
And for those who don't know, he was one of the main people developing I believe it was the.
Yeah, he was LucasArts original designers.
Yeah, I've got him on Steam. He's on my friends list on Steam, so hit him up. So
yeah. Oh, it makes me wonder how Into the Black or Enemy Starfighter, whatever it's called now. How
I think it's Into the Black, and I've got it on Steam. They're still trucking right along. I'm in their Discord server too, so they seem to be they've been doing a lot of testing. They get a lot of their pilots in, so I guess they're getting pretty darn close to. In the Black is the name of it. So yeah, they just I guess they just finished up a play test today or something like that. So they had one for like a whole week or something. Or it was like yesterday into today. That's what it was. I see it here. So
yeah, I just didn't dig it so much the last time we played it because it was like a Descent kind of game, not a space combat game.
Yeah, it definitely had Descent mixed with something else. It's kind of hard to describe, but it became quite challenging when your orientations quickly get changed. I think their whole premise of that thing was they were trying to make some kind of sort of semi-realistic, like Newtonian physics space combat, but
Yeah, but then all your guns become auto tracking and whatever. I just want like World War II fighter planes in space, right? Just what Star Wars did. That's great. I don't know. Like I'm playing that Project Wingman as we speak, and I kind of like this, right? Because it's like a like the Ace Combat series, and I feel like it could be better if the planes actually had realistic loadouts on them. Hey, maybe someone will mod it. But you know, it's kind of goofy. Like I'm carrying like 200 missiles. Yeah, probably not. But it's a thing. Like if this was a space combat game, however, and the controls were kind of like this, because it flies basically like War Thunder, right? You know, it's just like move the mouse. The plane tries to figure out how to turn to where you're looking. I'm super cool with that, right? And I feel like space combat in the future would kind of be more like that in a Star Wars kind of technology level environment. It would probably be like, you know, point where you want the ship to go and the ship's computers will figure out how to do that because humans aren't as good at it as computers are.
right.
So,
Well, mods are good, guys. I really like them. What about you, Jim? Do you have a favorite mod?
not really a favorite one, no. I mean, I have like 200 mods for Fallout 4. You want me to go through those?
Oh no.
Yeah, no, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think of something that's like some of my favorite mods. I definitely like the Star Trek Armada 3 mod for Sins of a Solar Empire. That's a really solid one. And definitely the mod support for Knights of the Old Republic 2 is pretty out there, but and just in general, I appreciate them. There's a lot of total conversion stuff out there that's a lot of fun to go and check out. I used to do a lot of total conversion stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
Stuff
You know
for
what?
like Unreal Tournament and
One mod that just completely overhauls the game and makes it way better is it's for Starbound. I forget what the actual mod is called, but it's like just this massive total overhaul of Starbound. And I kind of dig that one. And then if you like X Beyond the Frontier 3, right? Like I think it was X3. Yeah, because X4 kind of sucks. I can't wait for modders to fix that thing. But yeah, X3 Lit Cube's universe is like a total reboot of that game. Makes it very, very different.
There's a Star Wars total conversion for X3 that is pretty spectacular, I must say.
Yeah.
And there's also the Discovery Freelancer mod that I really like. That one's a lot of fun.
Yep.
So, and I have a server here at home for that one that I run.
Yeah, remember that Star Wars Freelancer mod that we were playing around with back in the day?
I think that one died though. I'd have to go look.
Yeah,
it
they
up.
kind of quit developing it. I wish they had kept up, but it was like they were hitting limits of what the game could do.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. Well, we like mods around here, and we definitely support them as part of our games preservation endeavor. So come on over to our Discord and check out more. We're still running our giveaway here on our Discord, so come check that out. 25 for 25, or excuse me, not 20. It's 100 for 100, and so we're doing 4 $25 gift cards for Amazon. So once we get 100 people over here, which we're still continuing to climb those numbers. Slow and steady wins the race, I always say.
Or we could do a 5 for 5, like a $5 footlong for the 5th person that joins. Get your Subway
That's
card.
funny. No, that's funny. Well, can't you like trade those in on Fortnite skins or something like that?
Yeah, well, I know you can buy bits on Twitch with your Subway card.
That's great. So yeah, we're still doing all of that. We also have some game servers that we've got going on over here. So hit up our Discord for information on those, such as Battlefield 4, Unreal Tournament. We've got a Minecraft server. Currently, we have a Conan Exiles, but I don't know how much longer we're going to keep that one going. I might archive that one. We'll spin it up at a later date, but we'll see.
Yeah, we haven't played Battlefield in a while. Are we going to keep that one around? I know, like, Battlefield 2042 is coming, right? So
Yeah, I think our subscription expires this month, and then the new one comes out next month.
Yeah, so we'll evaluate it once all that happens. But yeah, discord.otherworlds.gg will get you in the door, and we'll see you guys in the Discord server or on the next episode. This has been episode number 35.